Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the ELTA Podcast. It was some time in the making. The first time ELTA was thinking about and doing a podcast was probably 2 years ago. So finally, we are launching. It's a soft launch, I would say, and what better way to launch a podcast than inviting somebody who has done it already for over 450 times. So I'm very happy to introduce you to our first guest on our podcast, Robert Hanna, the host of the Legally Speaking podcast. Welcome, Robert, and thank you for doing this today.
Well, welcome and thank you so much for having me. It's a real honor to be here, and I'm delighted that you're creating podcasts. I think they're a wonderful tool and education vehicle and community builder and just brilliant things to do. So I'm honored to be your first guest and excited to be here and hopefully give some value to your listeners.
Absolutely. Well, we are a little bit piggybacking on your success, I guess. So that's always good. And with me today is Marisa Monteiro Borsboom, who came up with the idea and pushed us to do it finally, not only thinking about doing a podcast, but finally doing. So over to you, Marisa.
Well, thank you so much, guys. Holger, it's such a pleasure that you took my challenge, because it needs a team to, in fact, make things happen, from ideas to real action. And I need to admit that is really joyful for me to be here because it's happening. We don't expect that you think that we are pros. We're not. We are pros of the making, but many people are in this moment. I think for European LegalTech Association, that is completing 10 years this year, I think it's very important that we start open our communication to really broaden up who we reach, and also having different guests. Having Robert here is a guilty pleasure, because I was a guest on the podcast, and I could really understand what he was doing, the importance of what he was doing. That's how I came across to him. Many of you already did, but Robert, I always say that it's important to understand what brought you to this moment. Guide us a little bit your journey, the journey of the podcast, but a little bit about Robert itself, because I think it's so important to know the man behind the podcast.
Absolutely. And it was a real honor meeting you in person. So I'll give the story, but the reason that we connected was because we do a lot with the Legally Speaking podcast in terms of being media partners for some of the biggest and largest legal events in the world. And of course, at that time, it was at LegalTech Talk. Shout out to Bradley Collins and his team and the great work that they're doing. We were recording some live podcasts, we connected, and we did a great show. And that's one part of what we try to do connected to the show in terms of our thought leadership, community building, and general education. The person behind the show is I'm a dad, first and foremost. So family is very important to me. So I have a daughter, but the generation before that was my late grandfather, who was a law firm owner. He ran his own law firm in the 1950s in the United Kingdom. He came from very humble beginnings. Unfortunately, he lost his father at just the age of 8. Poor family, but worked very hard, was the first in his family to go to law school, to get his articles and to qualify, and managed to save up enough money and make things happen to set up his own firm. And that really inspired me, the journey he went on. And it wasn't really until he retired that the true legacy and reputation that he built that really connected and gives me the why about why I do the Legally Speaking podcast, why I do the other ventures, was he always used to say to me, Rob, live respected, die regretted. And one Christmas, many Christmases, I would always go to his house. And every year after he retired, he would get more and more Christmas cards delivered to his house. And I'd be like, wow, I didn't realize you had that many friends. And he said, no, I don't have that many friends. I have a lot of clients, former clients and generations beneath them clients that write to me annually every year, even though that I'm retired, to thank me for the work that my law firm did and the work that we did and the impact that they've had on the generations of families beneath me. And I thought, wow, people are busy. People are taking the time to keep in touch, to be grateful and gracious and stay connected. And I thought, wow. And this is in an offline world. This is pre-social media. This is pre-so many things. To have that level of human connection and impact on people and build that reputation, that landed with me. And I always thought I would want to do something connected to the legal world to carry that family legacy, but in a very modern form. Hence social media, podcasting, new ways of attracting business, going out there. And so I stand by that. And my mission with the Legal Speaking Podcast is to inspire legal minds and transform legal futures, but to build a kinder, more collaborative community where people can come together, feel safe, learn from one another, share knowledge, and do good. So I can live by that, live respected, die regretted motto. So that's a bit behind me in my story.
Well, I think it's clear why I could not be inspired by you as a person and by what you're doing. But Holger, not wanting to be selfish, the questions now for your side.
Yeah, well, it's a very fascinating story. Very much resonates with my own experience. I also was quite influenced by my granddad. But it's so important in these days where every second lawyer is fearing about getting replaced by technology and probably forgetting about what's the essence of legal work is not reviewing contracts or whatever you do the day over. It's more like solving conflicts between human beings. And that's something I think technology cannot replace. So that's about human interaction. And that's also very important for the legal tech community, which we are serving as ELTA. And in that regard, we are quite similar. You're talking about building a community. Maybe you can explain how you started that community building and what you see is the effect in the legal community and how we probably could replicate something like that for ELTA members, for our community. Because now, when we started 10 years ago, ELTA was the only legal tech association in Europe. Now we have a lot of different local and pan-European associations. So I wouldn't talk about competition, but nevertheless, people have a choice, which is always good. But it makes the community building a little bit more difficult. So that would be good to get some advice from you who's successfully building a community.
Well, and thank you for sharing your story as well. And it's really great to hear how we do get inspired by generations before us and how those values still instill us today, regardless of obviously the AI revolution that we're going through and the technological advancements. Because I still believe human connection is really important. To the community building piece, there's a few things that I would say that are very important. To doing that is one is, what do you want to be known for your community? So I believe the reason the Legally Speaking podcast has been successful is we've been very strategic around where we want to position ourselves. And I always say you need to have a TOI, which is a topic of influence. So for the Legally Speaking podcast and that community, our topic of influence is legal careers. So the information we're sharing with the community, the people we're trying to educate, inspire, inform, is around legal careers now, the future, and of course that cuts across a number of different strands, technology being a large part of redefining what legal careers would be like. Hence, we've done a partnership with Clio, the world's largest legal technology company, and been exclusively sponsored with them since 2021. But also, mental health and well-being, diversity, equity, and inclusion. But the nucleus and the fuel to the community is how can we help people when it comes to their legal careers now? Maybe they're seeking inspiration from someone who started in a high street law firm and has gone on to be a partner in a major big law firm, for example. Or maybe they started as a lawyer and then they've sold their legal tech business to a big brand, which many of the people we've had on the show has been able to do. Or maybe they just want to do more initiatives around their career. They don't just want to be the lawyer. They want to have other interests, and how do they balance that with family and other commitments? So my number one tip is find out, because there are lots of, like you say, other places out there people can go. Where is your topic of influence? It should be one or two words that you want people to know linked to your brand, where people are searching and coming for content. The second point is people need to feel seen, heard, and valued. Genuinely believe that. And how do you do that? You create a forum, an offline forum where people can share opinions, where people can suggest content, where people can engage with another, where you can refer, where you can share opportunities. So you create that constant communication, but you also have a platform for that, because actually you shouldn't be second guessing what the community wants. You should be making them feel seen, heard, and valued, so they share what they want with you, and you actually do social listening rather than social guessing. So that's another key part. And the third pillar, I would say, in terms of giving 3 tips, so topic of influence and having that community platform where you can share and receive feedback and engage and really warm that up and take it into deeper, meaningful relationships and human relationships, not just work related, but fun things, is collaboration. So I'll give a very strategic example just because I want to add value to your audience. When we launched the Legally Speaking podcast, and this is actually, you've done quite a good way of doing your show as well. I invited on the presidents at the time of the London Young Lawyers Group here in the UK. And there was 2 reasons for that. 1, I was friendly with them. 2, they had data. And what I mean by that is they were running a 0 to 7 PQE society. They've been running for many years. They probably had 6,500, 7,000 members. And at the time, nobody had heard of the Legally Speaking podcast. We were the first to really branch into this space. We took a risk. And for full disclosure, I have a legal recruitment business called KC Partners I've been running for the last decade. And it started as a business development tool and a thought leadership tool to attract law firms and lawyers to want to work with us and be different from more traditional providers out there. And of course, now it's grown into its own media brand and community, and we've taken it around the world. But at the start, I wanted to find a way that I could get exponential growth and get explosion onto the scene. So I collaborated with an organization of that size. Now, why? I invited them in, I gave them a great experience, but what are they going to do post coming on the show? Post me coming on the show, what am I going to do? I'm going to share it with my audience. I'm going to share it with my networks. I'm going to get immediately what I call audience jacking. So I was able to hijack that audience from inviting these people on and growing through collaboration, because they're going on a new exciting platform, which is one of the first, legal podcasts out in the UK at the time. It was a fun experience. And then I'm also getting attention and data and new entry points, which they're putting into their newsletters. So they're 3 strategic ways that if you're thinking about building community, thinking about growing, thinking about getting attention, collaborate with trusted voices in and around industries or societies or key people of influence. Think about platforms where you can give people a voice to feel seen, heard, and valued, and really listen to them. And also think about, where do you want to stand out, or what are the key points, your topic of influence, those 1 or 2 words you want your community to be known for, so people jump straight in there when they're looking for inspiration, help, or advice. Hope that helps. There's a long answer. I apologize.
Absolutely.
That is not long at all for me. And as I think you could see by my eyes going to my notebook, for me, as I hear it, it makes me think one of the contents that I like to consume, that is podcasters interviewing other podcasters.
Yes.
So communicators interviewing other communicators. And you see many conversations even repeating. So yes. Simon Sinek meets Tyro CEO, and not one time, but many times. And in the era that you can even have podcasts. I came across one that I still didn't manage to consider, that is 4 hours.
Yes.
And they put themselves in the point of, we're going deep into a topic, we never talk about this topic anymore, 4 hours. And I think in a sense, because in this era where AI will produce so much information, we really now tend to what is even more raw, less processed, but more real, yes. Which then, of course, is the human side of things. And you try to have a little bit of everything. If it's too much content, it becomes class-like, and then it's too heavy. You also want to have storytelling, but in a storytelling, you need to have the stories to tell. So you also need to have real experiences, and we know when they are not real. Yeah. There's a sense of authenticity that we miss in many places, that we understand that was fabricated.
Yeah.
So, and I used to be very self-conscious, the fact that I was not a native English speaker, and I knew that I was not going to use the right expressions, or I would say something that was not even proper, or I would speak English, but with a Portuguese software underneath. So, and now more and more, I think that what we really want is to listen something that is meaningful. That's also why we are now trying, even the choices we make, my choice was extremely human. It was not data-based that I chose you. Of course, I understood that you were doing an amazing work, but we didn't want to find the guy with the best podcast, with the best, how much audience. So it was not that. It was still, okay, of course, he's doing something amazing, but there's that connection. And the fact that I knew that Holger would be a person that, as me, is curious. He continues to be curious. Curiosity has nothing to do with age. We are not so young anymore in the sense of people keep saying, oh, the youth. No, curiosity is a mindset. You can be extremely in your 90s and still want to know so much. So I think the fact that we're moving forward really demands that we are able to also listen. It's not long. We want to be so fast because we don't want to lose the attention. At the same time, if I'm really receiving an information like you did, so properly put, so truthful and so useful, I take my time to listen because I know the value what I'm receiving. And in that sense, it allows me to ask you, with so many people you talked, for sure, there's layers. When everybody talks, what is not so, but you see increasing, and the things that you can start already anticipating, that is like, I don't hear everybody. These are the pioneers. These are the mavericks. I bumped into something today, and I know that this is going to be something. So I'm really curious to have that layers of your intel. I will call it podcast intel. That you will bring to our community.
Okay. Well, firstly, I just want to sort of build on a couple of points that you said there that I really talk about openly with my community. Firstly, is we are drowning in information and we are craving wisdom. And so what I mean by that, AI doesn't know anything. You know, a lot of people are actually talking about machine learning. AI is very good at repeating and what's already out there and as it says, but that wisdom and that years of intellect that the legal professionals particularly have in their brains, which yes, is getting put onto systems eventually, but we are still craving wisdom because it's so easy for us now to jump onto these platforms. You know, Claude is getting a lot of attention in 2026, particularly with some big plays that they've been doing. But we are drowning in information. So it's those people that have that wisdom that I think will win. The other point is we're no longer in this B2B or B2C world, which we have historically thought about doing business. We're in this hyper-connected H2H world. People are craving human-to-human connection because we're all uncertain about what the future holds. No one categorically can say to me with sheer confidence that this is going to happen in the next 2 years. We don't know. We live in an age of constant change now. And so that human connection that, you know, we have connected beautifully on this podcast. I had a wonderful experience before coming on air. You've very kindly welcomed me. We've had the benefit of meeting in person beforehand, but Holger and the team have been wonderful. And it's been really nice having this conversation. And I agree on stories because facts tell, but it's really that story selling that sells and connects with your audience. So I'm 100% with you. And a tip, which you mentioned about, you see Simon Sinek and Diary of a CEO, Stephen Bartlett, which, spoiler alert, we may be doing something with later in the year. There is a real advantage to pod swapping because when you come on, again, if people come onto our show, they can bounce my audience into their audience. So Marisa, for you, maybe as an example, you may want to repurpose your episode of the Legally Speaking podcast around the launch of this one to hijack the Legally Speaking podcast audience, like, hey, I was on the show, and by the way, we've got our own show now, go check it out. But to your point, a couple of things that I'm making observations around from interviewing hundreds of, you know, law firm leaders, legal technology owners. The big thing, well, there's two things that I think are really important for law firm owners and people practicing in law to understand, which is going to supercharge your practice. And the first one is understanding, coming from a legal technology point of view, that you can no longer just use systems for systems of record. So what I mean by that, historically, people would put data into their practice management systems. They would put data in there, and then they would manually go and find things, and very time consuming. Although they're in the cloud, the real winners in the future and now are understanding systems of action are last year and the year before, this year and now are systems of record. So what I mean by, systems of record moving to systems of action. So rather than just recording things, it's actually utilizing technology so it can move forward. So rather than just sort of, manually putting something in there, you should get auto-scheduled meetings. You should get auto-scheduled, first cut drafts. And these can, of course, be reviewed, but it's using systems now as systems of action. So subtle plug for Clio, because they created the intelligent legal workplace platform with Clio Work, one of the world's first. So rather than just sort of this data sitting there, it's actually moving things along far quicker. So it's reducing time, reducing friction, reducing burnout for associates getting stuck on certain level tasks. So that is a big trend. The firms that cotton on to investing significantly into platforms which can turn in from system of record to systems of actions, make you faster, more efficient, save time, pass on the gains to clients, etc., I think is a big sort of play, and where I see the puck going. The famous Wayne Gretzky ice hockey player doesn't skate to where the puck is, he skates to where it's going. The second thing that everyone needs to be thinking about, and this is from interviewing law firm leaders and legal technologist owners, is the worrying thought about cognitive learning and the thought process and how we're going to retain the future talent's wisdom of legal professionals coming through, vis-a-vis not just solely relying on AI and technology. What are we doing to protect what we have for many years, where we've been really deep learning, upskilling, investing, producing the best quality legal talent? And I have the benefit of talking to lawyers day in, day out through my legal recruiting business. And that is a point that law firms and people running businesses or people thinking about careers is like, what are you doing to ensure that we're going to keep this sharp-minded, real, the human touch, but the real investment in people? So they were the two things that I'm really interested in terms of understanding people from a technology perspective. Are you moving to systems of action and letting these tools make you faster, more efficient, so you don't lose out on the AI race? And then on the people side, because they go hand in hand, tech and people, what are we doing to protect, that cognitive thinking, the learning, the development, the behaviorals, the culture? They're two things that I think are very fascinating things that are going to play out. And time will tell. The people that really double down on both will be highly, highly successful, and those who don't, I think they'll have challenges. Hopefully that was
so. I'm taking over. I guess I was waiting for Marisa. Well, one question I have is you mentioned that part of the inspiration for launching the Legally Speaking podcast was to use it as a marketing vehicle, yes, so to say, channel for your own business. And that regarding, and you partnered with Clio as a whale in the legal tech industry. From your point of view, what are the issues for legal tech vendors in promoting, marketing their solutions to lawyers? Because in the end, is also a human-to-human connection, and that's probably a lot of the times it's a very formal process, and probably not really considering that human-to-human connection. What could be improved in the marketing of legal tech solutions to the legal industry, in your opinion?
I think it's understanding your end clients. Firstly, I think from a sales perspective, I'll just share this. When vendors are trying to pitch or go out to law firms, a bad salesperson sells features. A good salesperson sells benefits, but the great salespeople, they sell feelings. And so how can you make those law firms feel? As a vendor provider, how can you make them feel through this technology that it's going to supercharge their practice? What is the overall arching feeling you can leave through that human-to-human connection? I think is really, really important. So I think at the moment there is too many vendors, and there's not all these vendors are not going to survive. They're either going to be acquired or fail. And that's good when there's any level of investment and new technologies coming in. There's a mass number of people that want to obviously get onto the entrepreneurial spot. And as an entrepreneur myself, I encourage that. I massively welcome that. But I think on the marketing side is if you confuse people, you lose people. So in terms of the vendors, is you can know all of the tech stack and all of the great stuff, but if your lawyer or legal professional who maybe hasn't come from a technology background doesn't understand that, then you're almost not going to get the level of adoption you would like. So it's actually not, it's dumbing things down to a level of understanding your client and their level of understanding their pain points specifically, and being tailored in your marketing to them, but selling them a feeling of delight. Like when when people think about certain brands, you say a name, you have a feeling attached to them, whether it's Apple or Amazon or some of these biggest brands in the world, that will give you some sort of feeling, either positive, negative, really happy, unsure, and for me, the vendors that get it right, if you can give that positive feeling and that solution feeling and a genuine benefit, that's where you stand out. And that does take craft, and that is where that human to human connection, particularly with the key decision makers within the organization, is very important.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think also a little bit what the pink elephant always in the room, and it will be pink because ELTA colors match very good the red colors of legally speaking. But I feel like we also enter this era where people, because they sell services, they want to sell expertise. And while they should be honest in the sense of we are building the future. I think we had a generation, when I started my career, there was a generation of the real experts, maybe men like your grandfather, that it required all these years of true expertise, but also because family law was not changing fast that nobody could understand what they were talking. Neither they were building new systems, right? So the expertise was built in something that was quite solid, and the alterations could be matched with study and keeping the understanding. But nowadays, I came this morning, I was among a community that I entered many years ago, contract management. I did work in this field, and I took my certification, all of that. For a while, I got out of the sector, and now coming back, I understand, first of all, the industry doesn't move barely an inch. Secondly, what we keep understanding is that we don't have what we need for what's being created. So, and that is the problem. And then we talk about having tools or technology, and a sentence popped in that conversation that was like, oh, people couldn't be bothered. And I think also we need to understand that beyond the pitch, the commercial pitch, beyond the product, people are only bothered of what they wish or what they can really control. And I feel like many of us also understand that these professionals are completely overwhelmed most of the time.
Yeah,
I don't think it's an accident that we talk more about wellness and mental well-being, because I remember that hearing that my profession, or the one I was going to embrace, an attorney, was a profession where people would die early with heart failures. So, and this was being said very nicely, right? Like it's what it is. It's a very demanding profession, but I think a whole level of complexity came. So for me, it's also very interesting to explore just a little bit beyond your own podcast of these careers, because I think one of the things that we can be useful, a podcast like yours or an organization like ours, is that we can also be a little bit the aggregators or the echoes of what people really need. Right, and sometimes they don't even know really where to start. It's quite complex. So, in one side, an organization like European LegalTech Association can really have the vendors, but also the professionals. A podcast like yours can also really open horizons that people never understood in a time that professions are being built and some are not even there. So, I really would like to have that feedback from you a little bit also of what you do behind or beyond the podcast in the part of the careers.
Yeah, so I mean, in 2016, I launched KC Partners, which is the legal talent solutions business, which focuses very much on people's legal careers. And I had, remember the live respected, die regretted. I said when I launched the company originally, we will not place somebody once, we will place them for life. And what I mean by that is you become their trusted advisor. As the legal careers consultant, we help them with their start of their career, but also towards the end of their career, because gone are the days where you would stay at one law firm, you'd train and you would stay as a partner and you would exit and retire. There's too much opportunity, there's too much change, there's too many different environments out there now. And the way that we're able to do that is through community and content. Because, for example, I can help someone with a legal careers placement at the early stage, but I can't ring them in 2 weeks' time and say, hey, are you looking for another job? Because they're not going to be looking for another job, you would hope. You know, it'd be a pretty bad use of but I could still be of value to them. I can be like, hey, I've just done this interview, which I think talks about this, and this, which actually you thinking about going from associate to senior associates in the future might be some helpful tips. Or actually you're thinking of building your book of business now to become a partner in this area. Here's actually a recent article that we've just shared on our community platform that's around business building that I think could be valuable. So you become not the transactional service provider, you become the trusted consultant, you become top of mind. And so suddenly you place somebody at the early stage of their career, maybe the value size is X, but your customer lifetime value, when they get more senior, their salaries advance, their packages advance, and you get the phone call, you suddenly cash in. If you're prepared to play long-term, genuinely deep-rooted relationships, you have a very, very, very lucrative model. And so I've been very passionate about that in terms of how can we be different. We don't want to be the biggest. We don't want to be the biggest, legal careers agency out there. We want to be known for good quality, value add. And if that gets us the reputation that I aspire to achieve that I've mentioned before, that's all that matters to me. So yes, I think the key part is with all of these things, and even if you're a vendor, when you're selling legal technology into a law firm, how are you staying connected? How are you educating them? Are you giving them monthly updates on how you should be using your products? Are you giving them super user? Are you giving them buddy schemes? Are you doing things that makes your clients not just happy, but delighted? You give them that feeling of delight. It's like, yes. And so that's what we try to do on the careers side. It's like everything that we do. So the podcast, as you mentioned, business development tool, rather than going out and pitching to law firms to win business, we would invite them onto a show, would give them a Rolls Royce experience. We would then say, we'll create this content for you, we'll create snippets, clips, we'll create blogs, we'll create articles for you. This will save your marketing team tons of time. It'll be great for talent attraction, retention. You can share your story. You become value add and start a relationship. And they're like, oh, I didn't realize that you also ran this legal recruiting business. And so you can get business off the back of it, but leading with value. So a big believer of lead with value, but then keep giving value and touch points throughout. And that's something that I'm very, very passionate about. And something I've always tried to do throughout my own personal careers, but then also when trying to help people with their careers, give value, because you need to stay top of mind now, because there's lots of pieces out there, there's lots of things going on there. So if you don't, you'll lose people. So yeah, hopefully that gives you a bit of context about how we structure things and how we go about managing and fostering and nurturing relationships.
No, it did, and I think it's so important. That is another thing that we have in common. I think ELTA, at least I joined ELTA exactly for the same feeling.
Yeah.
A sense of belonging, a sense of connecting with people that I could trust, people that I knew that I could also inquire when I didn't know. So I learned so much in this 10 years. And like I say, even from professionals with different backgrounds, and exchanging conversations, exchanging knowledge, knowing that I was taking all that value for me, but I was trying to also to give. And we are, in a sense, getting closer to what is going to be our wrap up. And I have the opportunity to also say that we will have at least one question that is neither from me, neither from Holger, that will always come from our members. Genuine questions that are just the echo of what people hear through this experience. And so while Holger finalizes his last question, I will make sure that I will find the best question to end this from our members. And of course, knowing, Robert, that this will not be your last time with ELTA. So it's why we are going to the last question of Holger, and then I will have this question for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, Marisa already mentioned the issue of well-being, and I know you're very passionate about it. And if you look, the statistics are awful. The legal profession leads in substance abuse and suicides, and it's a very stressful position, and it's not getting better because now you have technology-induced anxiety adding to it. Workload is not going down, so I would even say a toxic environment. I'm not a lawyer myself, but I see it for the last 30 years. It's hard. So what can be done in order to balance it out a little bit? Of course, the workload is not going to become less. Stress is probably not going to become less, but what can be done in order to relieve the legal profession a little bit of that stress?
Well, I think it's holding spaces like this, having conversations like this where people can be vulnerable but feel safe. And that's the importance of the community, seen, heard, and valued. People saying, actually, I'm not having a good day at the moment, or actually, I'm struggling, and knowing there are people out there that will be there to support them, or they have safeness in a community. What I will say is that there absolutely is more that needs to be done, but there are, particularly I can talk from a UK perspective, there are organizations like Law Care, which is the mental health charity for lawyers, which is run by Elizabeth Rimmer and her team. I know they are inundated, but they do as good a job as they can do with the resources. So I'd actually say for people, if you do have means and maybe you find ways that you could give back, I would say investing in charities particularly would be so welcomed and so helpful, so we can help more lawyers and attorneys get the support and help that they need, because these charities do great work, but more on that. So I think if we can invest more, that would be great. Or if organizations genuinely care about the well-being and could do some charitable donations, wonderful. Holding the conversation and making people feel safe is also important. But also I think there's a responsibility of law firms as well. Of course, they are for-profit businesses, but the pressure comes from the clients ultimately, because you're trying to deliver for your clients that are paying your bills. So are the clients that you have the clients that represent the values that you genuinely have within your law firm? And if they are, then are the people that are working for you or going to be working for you fully aware of those values and where you sit and what have you? For example, if you work in big law and you're working on big ticket M&A and you're working with some of the world's biggest law firms, you're going to be doing some day and nights in the office, because big ticket transactions, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. So transparency from leaders, not packaging up sexy titles and big salaries, but actually giving them the reality and stress testing it for them. Is this what you want? And is this something, is this the right environment for you? So I would say more leadership transparency around generally the values and the day-to-day work. So then people going in, eyes wide open. I think too many times have I spoken to candidates over the years in my legal Christmas business who say, Rob, I was missold the role. Rob, it wasn't what was said in the interview. And yes, there's two sides to every story, but good talent does the talking with the sound of their feet. They leave. And so I think we just need to abolish that mindset, and we just need to be transparent with people about really what the work is. And then so people going in have a greater understanding to the best of their knowledge, so they can make informed decisions like, yes, this is what I want at this point in time. Because careers shift. Maybe at the start of your career, you want to put absolutely everything into it, but then maybe family comes along, or maybe ill parents come along, or different points in your life come along where actually you need to devote time to other things aside from your career. And so you need to understand what's right for you. So there would be three things I would say that potentially could help on such an important topic, because what I would say is everyone is going through something. We should all be kinder to one another.
Absolutely. And again, the community is a large part of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that is, well, the community also builds friendships and connections, right? After a few years, as you were saying, you didn't want be the biggest, but I really like the expression of real, long, truthful connections, and that kind of count also with people. That is extremely important as we go, as you say, also changing careers, having tips. There's so many things we can do in this co-creation that I think is really important. And I leave this note that business responsibility, as we know, ESGs or corporate responsibility, is also part of law firms, but the legal tech vendors. And also what is going to be a future where maybe we will not have so many silos in what will be the legal professionals or legal and contracting or procurement. There's so many little silos that at the same time that things evolved also are a little bit shifting this, the attorneys, this and that. So I think we need to be prepared to think about this responsibility. And I leave a curiosity note for yourself, Robert, that is, for example, the Portuguese Bar Association, that has a very progressive president at the moment, made benefits, so our social benefits, so allowing lawyers to have psychological support. And I think this shows already a little bit a different mentality, a different generation, where we want to put our efforts, where we want to put our investment, and that we don't just pour money to develop tools, but really invest in the people. And we cannot expect high performers if there's not a high investment in these people. It's a little bit part of human nature. If we see that we are cared for, if we see that it's worth our effort, we will put our effort there. If we are really not valued, we will, most of the people will not act also at their best. But with that note, I do have a small question from the public here. Again, I will remind you, a member, and maybe I think it's young talent people, because the question that I'm going to read, I want to be precise. A question to Robert: do you feel that firms are generally buying into seeing the value in using their talent to produce content by, for example, appearing on podcasts such as yours? Maybe this is young talent wanting to have the opportunity.
I think that's a really good question. What I would say just before that, to your point about the Portuguese bar, I will give a shout out to Mark Evans, who's the current president of the Law Society of England and Wales, and we've had him on the Legally Speaking podcast. He set up an organization called Legal Runner. I've actually got into running, so a lot of people who have been following me, I've been trying to run every day for my own mental health, well-being, staying young and being an active father. I want to be able to pick up my daughter and all of that good stuff. But Mark is being a brilliant leader of the profession. He talks about his own struggles, and he is the leader of, England and Wales Law Society, and how he's created this community of running and encourages people to go out. And sometimes talking to people face to face is difficult, but actually having someone to the side of you, going at a slow pace, just talking through things, maybe even a perfect stranger, and having that conversation could just maybe that give you that moment of relief. So I just want to give a shout out to say, I think leaders, to Olga's question before as well, is if leaders can be vulnerable and perhaps create platforms where we can create conversation and create outlets with no judgment, I'm here for it. To the question, because I'm conscious of time, I think it's a yes and no. I think some firms are and some firms aren't. If you look at the UK, there's some great examples. So where I think it's done well, there's an organization called TBD Marketing, which is run by Simon Marshall, which a lot of people may have seen, where they get their rankings, top 100, top 200 lawyers, for legal technology for lawyers. The fact that's even a business should tell you the value of talent getting out there and being your best advocate, your employee advocacy online. I think it is a huge opportunity that is still not being utilized by law firms. I think some law firms have cottoned onto it, some firms haven't. So I would say it's a yes, no, but I would encourage everyone, particularly as a law firm, what are you selling? You're selling your people at the end of the day. Who is the people that you're talking to? That wisdom, that intellect, because the AI is the AI and the technology is the technology. It's those people, it's those voices, it's those stories. Imagine a lawyer just telling a story, a client testimonial story, even if it needs to be a slightly curated because of confidentiality, but getting that out there and sharing those messages or sharing vulnerabilities or lessons and learnings, that is better. The data backs it up. Personal brands are 561% more valuable than company brands or firm brands. So you can just look at anything. You can go and look at Diary of a CEO, but then look at number of Stephen Bartlett followers. The personal brand carries weight. So the personal brand of people within your law firms and allowing them to go on podcasts, allowing them to go out there and express and build connections is so important. And that's good for business. It's good for candidate attraction. It's good for client attraction. It's good for staying top of mind. And it's good for building community and the opportunities that come with it. So again, a long-winded answer, but it's a yes, no, but I think everyone should be going for it because everyone has a voice, everyone has a story, and giving them a platform. Because you've already hired them, you should trust them, and they're in line with your guidelines and values and policies and everything else. You should let them go out there and express themselves as well.
Well, I'm delighted. I cannot hide how important this is for me personally, and what a joy to be able to share this with ELTA members and our larger community that we hope that we really amplify, inviting everybody, of course, to reach out. But I would not like, before closing, I really would like to have the opportunity of having Holger's takeaways, and knowing that he's a leader, as I say, in this field, previous president of the European LegalTech Association, continued to be in the lead of this house. So, Holger, I really would like to take this opportunity to have a little bit your takeaways, but Robert can also benefit from it, and then I can close our first journey on this.
Yeah, we did it, guys. We did it. Thank you very much, and thank you, Rob. It was really great having you on the podcast on the very first episode, and I think the main takeaway from today is the value of a community, your community, our community. Maybe please tell people shortly how they can find you, how they can find your podcast. Probably Googling it would be the best solution.
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to legallyspeakingpodcast.com. That has all of our episodes. We are available on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. But if you want to go to Legally Speaking Podcast, we have a search function because we're coming up to nearly 500 episodes now. It's a lot of content. You can go into the search bar, and maybe you're looking for content on a certain thing linked to a legal career. Put one or two words in, it'll bring up those listed episodes curated for you in line with what you're looking for. I'd love to connect with people. LinkedIn is my main platform. I've been a LinkedIn top voice. I've helped LinkedIn with product rollouts. I've been kindly invited to their offices a few times around the world. I'm Robert Hanna there. Please do follow me and send me a message, or tell me one thing that's resonated with you following today. And, I'd love to have a meaningful conversation and see how we can help and support one another. And I'd just like to say thank you both to Marisa and Holger for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. This podcast is going to be a huge success. And it's been a real honor spending time with you. And very happy to continue supporting ELTA in whatever ways we can in the future.
Great. Likewise.
Thank you, Robert.
People, subscribe to Legally Speaking Podcast, subscribe to ELTA Podcast, join ELTA.
All the details will be, of course, shared when we post this, and we'll make sure that we also take a little bit in bites so we can make this also easier for you to access. So for all tastes, shapes, and flavors. But for sure, it was. It's a little bit of a small dream coming true, and we need to continue to be operating in the base of dreams. I think it's really important to create this opportunities, because also we want to create moments where live content will be there. We really want our members to reach out to us what they would like to hear. So please understand that this was designed to be co-creation mode. And as I hear so many times in the Netherlands, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And that's really what I would like to also be able to assure that ELTA will continue to grow with cooperations, with partnerships, and that we are in a way designing a place where we like to be members and we want to be active, valued, and useful. So a pleasure, guys, and hopefully see you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And we is greater than me. I absolutely support that. So thanks again.
Thank you.